If you look at AI job postings right now, deep learning comes up again and again. Companies are actively searching for people who understand these concepts. AI engineers earning $150,000 and up, data scientists working on major projects, machine learning specialists building the technology of the tomorrow. And that's exactly why learning deep learning and neural networks is so important today. So in this video, we are breaking down the fundamentals in a way that actually makes sense. We will show you how your brain works and how computers mimic that process through neural network. You'll see real-world applications, AI diagnosing diseases, powering self-driving cars, and creating intelligent chatbots. And by the end of this video, you'll have a solid understanding of how neural networks actually function, why deep learning is revolutionizing industries, and most importantly, how these concepts apply to real-world problems. So whether you're looking to switch careers, level up in your current role, or just satisfy your curiosity about AI, you'll walk away with clarity on the foundations that matter. Also, today's video is part of our AI/ML track job-oriented program, where professionals have successfully landed high-paying positions in AI with top certifications. And here's something exciting. We are hosting a free 90-minute masterclass on AI/ML, GenAI, data science, and Agentic AI. Our experts will share a practical 3-step framework for breaking into these high-paying roles. The registration link is right there in the description and pinned comments. Don't miss it. So now let's dive into the video.
So now what is very important for all of us is a quick little more deeper into AI is machines mimicking the human intelligence. Okay, a quick summary in a really nice way. ML, algorithms that learn from data. Deep learning is a subset of machine learning that use deep neural networks. It's inspired by human brain structures, which has got a neurons and layers. Anytime if I ask, for example, Nirmala or Syed or anybody who is attending today, how did you answer some questions? Okay, if you're able to explain it to deep dive, you will suddenly feel that, okay, so complex is the brain. It worked with a fraction of a second. You're trying to really simulate that kind of thing in the deep learning. See, ML is more raw. It's taking data and algorithm and training it, etc. The deep learning is very, very complex in nature. Okay, so let's understand a little more about deep learning today, and then we will go ahead with the structure of the class. So deep learning uses something called artificial neural networks, and it will have many hidden layers. Even a researcher could have taken a year to learn what is deep learning. So don't expect that you will become a master, but understand that it's very easy to understand if you can simulate this with your brain. It's called ANN, artificial neural networks. And what is this layers? There are multiple layers which works. Like imagine somebody is losing the sense of touch. Somebody is losing the sense of smell. Okay, these are all happens when you get older, and there is a specific part of brain which doesn't work, right? And when you're doing all these things together, there are multiple. If possible, learn about the brain project of Google. Learn about ultimately, I'll give you these links right away. Learn about something about how does a human brain works, right? And these are things which will help you in the journey. Okay, so let's go to the Google Brain project. Okay, and see what and how it works. Now, if you can just research this a little bit, I'm not going to cover this. It will take me 4 hours to cover this. If you can just go through this a little bit, okay, you will find that you have content for next 1 year to read. That was on the lighter side. So don't worry about going deep, but you must understand this part of the storyline. Similarly, you might be looking at funny. A human brain is the most complex the way it works. Okay, so if you just search for human brain neural network, you will find that there is a Wikipedia. So don't read general information. It will take you years to master it. But if you just go through what is a human brain and what is a typical neural networks, you will get a generic information about it. So when I go to AWS or Azure's implement as an implementer, for me, these basics helps me to really pick and choose, okay, here is SageMaker, here is this, here is that, this is what. But the basics are very, very important. Okay, we'll go back to the slides, but use these links to read if you want little more informations. So these two links will give you little more information about the neural networks, how it can excel in an unstructured data. For example, human to think like if he sees an image and is able to respond faster, to mimic that on a mission level or writing a program is very tough. So audio, video, images, okay, it can do automatic feature extractions. Okay, you can go very deep because I've added few slides which you will also be getting it. You can just read this about neurons, which are the basic computational unit. There are layers, which is called input, hidden, and output layers, which happens. And then there is a activation functions. Now, these are all classes for researchers. So when we conduct sessions 2 days for researchers about neural networks, we go into ReLU, Sigmoid, TAN, but not required for a beginner class. Okay, but these terminologies are very important. Similarly, understanding what is backpropagation, optimizations, because entirely these technologies work with these names. So some basic things, not that you want to cover it, not cover it. You must know these basics, right? So just to understand AI, ML, deep learning, NLPs, generative AI, foundation models, prompt engineering, set these basics absolutely right before you go into a AWS console or a Azure console or GCP console and start doing labs. So just get your basics right. The first 2 weeks are the right weeks to get these basics right. If you go forward, there are different type of deep learning models. Okay, one of them is called CNN, which is called convolutional neural networks. Basically, it could be used for things like image recognitions. There are recurrent neural networks, which is used for sequential data. There is a concept called LSTM and GRU, which is a intent where it can remember some states. And then there is a transformer we discussed, which is used for NLPs and multimodal AI, or even in the world of foundation model. And these research papers were out 5 years, 10 years back. They're not very new, but CNN, RNNs were pretty much where is the space I was there for 4, 5 years writing code in all these areas, right? So transformers and all this came caught up in the world of generative AI when OpenAI brought something like this. So understand these deep learning models which are available. There are different types. We're not going to cover this, but if I'm putting some slides, it means if you want to be a solid in the basics of some subjects, these are some of the slides which you just have to know, right? You don't have to go and do a research for, because we have a short, smart, employability plus certification, but you must be understanding, you must use this time to also do some research on some of the topics. You can't tell, I don't know what is RNN, what is CNN, what is LSTM. If you put it on Google, LSTM will be one literature for you to read for next 3 weeks. You don't have to read so much. Even if you get a summary, it's good enough. We'll talk about it as we go forward when we get into the implementation, etc., on these subjects. Coming back, where is it applied? Because it becomes easy for us to visualize if I see something, right? So computer vision. So deep learning is used in image rec. So I worked on a project, I cannot name any client names, where we were trying to do for medical imaging. So we had to use the vision. I used AWS for it, the SageMaker stack, to really build this for a customer. And then we productized it. Basically, how you can recognize different images which are coming in, and then categorizing what it is, what kind of anomaly it is, making some prediction, etc. So vision, computer vision is a very important application of deep learning. NLPs, chatbots, translations are a great place where it is used. Before the GenAI comes, people, the way they talk to me is like as though somebody put in it was just on the lighter side, somebody gave me a profile where they told I have 10-year experience in generative AI. So this is the most funny thing you can do. Okay, so GenAI is available only for the last 2 years or 3 years, right? So you can't put I have 10-year experience in nobody knew what is GenAI 3 years back. Okay, so ultimately NLPs were there, chatbots. Okay, so most of the projects we are working for customers is you are transforming the existing chatbots or translation into the GenAI world. So you get the power of foundation models. But NLPs are still used in a bank or any of the customer care centers. You will find chatbots, translation happens. Similarly, the speech recognition systems like voice assistant, autonomous vehicle, perception, decision making. And then we have generative AI, which is also part of the deep learning. Now, why is this top deep learning very important? So, if I have to really fish a good candidate, so the first question you ask is, do you know generative AI? Okay, can you give me an example? Okay, and then you get into looking at which particular service did you use to build GenAI. Maybe you tell AWS, Azure, or GCP. What are the tools used? But the predominant place they will fail is if you just ask little more deep questions like, can you give some examples of where this is getting utilized? From what is deep learning? How is it related to GenAI? So just ensure that you are able to connect these dots. Okay. If you go into, apart from the e-learning provided by K21, there are so many courses available on this topic which you can refer to. Okay. So ultimately you are responsible for the deeper learning. Okay. We are there to answer your questions, etc. But you must set the stage because this is going to be the next decade or 2 decades. It's worth your time to put effort into learning as much as possible. The last part is some of the tools and frameworks. There are multiple tools, right? So there are TensorFlow, which was very famous, PyTorch, Keras, MXNet. I've used all these tools while we build deep learning with end customers. They are not important for you to really look at all these frameworks at this point. The ideal is like if you know what is deep learning, to understanding what are the different frameworks which are available, what are some of the use cases, how does it work. Okay. The answer to the question is, I think Dami is asking what is the answer to the question. The question is very simple that if somebody is been working on GenAI tool but is not familiar that its origin is from deep learning and under deep learning NLP, it shows very low light to him. So why do you think K21 is putting together the first week and today's 1 hour or something or 30 minutes is for you to get these basics right, because the entire power of GenAI still lies under a concept called deep learning, right? So you must know. So we ask candidates more in terms of, do you know what is deep learning? How does it work? Can you think of a use case? Where do you think GenAI fits under the deep learning? It's an application of the deep learning. Imagine the kind of hype which is getting created, right? It's not, GenAI is not everything today, right? So you'll see that different use cases have been available. One of them is generative AI. Okay, that is what. So questions, Demi, we will discuss it. There are a lot of interview techniques. There are a lot of certification approaches which you can take. As we get to the end of the course, we will cover a lot more thing. First, let's get the basics right. Okay. So with that, we will get back to the session and we will think generative AI in practice. So I just wanted to ask you one simple questions. Now, this class onwards, we will be using AWS as a service provider for us to understand the concept behind whether it is AI, ML, generative AI, etc. How many of you understand the AWS services, the basic AWS services really well? For example, I'll give you some names like EC2, S3 bucket. Okay, maybe some knows about networking. If there is any no, I just want to observe because I want to be extremely careful that fantastic. Okay, with that, let's look at a tour. So first things first, okay, all of you should have an AWS instance. All of you should have an access to the AWS, the portal. In terms of if you have any trouble, there is also a section in the portal how to get your free instance. AWS in recent times have changed this policies from 6 months kind of an access with the $200 credit, or you have to take a free trial. A lot of these services are disabled. So go for a $200. We have no time to cover how to get an AWS instance for the lab. Okay. So everybody has an account. That's great. So that is a pretty much. And where do you access the labs? You can go to the module. There is a video. There's a things that don't do blindly. You see, we want this batch to be the best from a foundation, not only implementers and understand. The way I'm going to demonstrate, you will see, I don't see the AWS console the way a teacher or an instructor is looking at, right? So as an implementer, I have a different view. So watch me do some kind of a high level view first on the console, and then we'll go back to the deck. So be with me. So the way you should look at tip number one, again, as I told you, I'm not going to repeat. You will not find what I'm telling on this demo directly in the deck. So you have to watch me, help you understand how you should look at the AWS console as a AI/ML practitioner. And if you are able to get grasp of these things, what I'm telling you, you will be good to go. Okay. So when I click this button, you will find there are so many services which are available. Now, first thing first, we should understand there is an analytic tabs. So all of you, I would strongly suggest we have classes coming up for analytics a little bit down the line. Don't worry about that. But today we're touring it's like when you want to really book a hotel or something, somebody shows you a tour map. How does it look? So you get a feel of, okay, this is what it is, right? So that is exactly. So analytics is a big brother of AI/ML. It means imagine every customer project I've worked, there is a component of analytics which is already available with the customers. It's a MIS reporting. It could be something like predictive, like EPM, performance management, or it can be historical analysis, current processing, etc. There are several AWS services, but we are not doing an analytical specialty class here. Okay. But these two worlds don't work separately. For that reasons, you must know that these services which are here are very, very important. And I want to pick and choose one service for you, which you should really look at, which will be this service, right? So you can see here, SageMaker. Now you might be wondering, what is this SageMaker? So previously, this SageMaker, there is two SageMaker now. Imagine how AWS is confusing, right? There is one SageMaker AI, another Amazon SageMaker. So now you're confused. What is this? What is that? So as a beginner, you must know, and maybe even an experienced person may not be able to differentiate because this happened 5 months back. Before that, we called it as only SageMaker. Today, we have Amazon SageMaker, we have Amazon SageMaker AI. This is extremely important what I'm trying to tell, because today most of my customers, I'm demystifying this. Even for your certifications which are coming up, these are the topics which will get updated. Okay, so what is SageMaker? So people felt, imagine you go to your customer, imagine you go to a bank, okay, and you tell that I'm going to build an analytic project. Imagine all of you are in the AWS class, right? So you're using AWS service to build analytics, AI/ML, and GenAI. Three different projects you're going to do for the same customers. And you met the CIO, you met the project team, and then you tell with analytical team, I will build one data repository. For AI/ML team, I'll build another data repository. For generative AI team, even though there is a foundation model, I have to collect additional data. You will do three jobs in parallel. And that was the world up to maybe April or May 2024. There is no way you can avoid it. So in the last year, around the reinvent of AWS, they announced this called SageMaker. So SageMaker, as a beginner, you should know, is integrating the data, analytics, and AI into one particular tool. You may not even find a course on this topic much. You'll find most of the courses available on SageMaker AI and Bedrock. Okay, they're available on other topics. Now, this is a very, very important topic for a practitioner. So you must know SageMaker from the analyst. You don't have to know all these things, because then we are getting into the specialization class of analytics, which itself will take you 50 hours to 60 hours to cover. That is not our focus. So you must capture this and understand it is basically to connect the world of, you can have a single data which can be used by multiple projects. Imagine the power. Okay, you can think about it. If we, if it permits time, when we reach the right topic, I will demonstrate the SageMaker with an example. Currently, look at it from a bird's eye view. So tomorrow, when you have a console, you will also practice the same way I am showing you, and you will get a base. So if I click here, for example, right? So if I go and click this SageMaker, it's going to take me to a window here. Let me just clear this off, which will be basically, which will tell me the Center for Data Analytics and AI. And you will see that it has got most of the service. Let me close this. For Unified Studio Data Zone, okay, it's got Bedrock, it's got data processing, Lakehouse, analytics. Now, if you ask me why this is not covered, this is just 5 months old, right? Second, even the certifications are not updated to this still, right? So you'll not find SageMaker is called next gen. If you really carefully watch next gen. So as a practitioner, so what should you do to get faster job, get Lookly? So you must know there is one, let me show you, machine learning. You will find here SageMaker AI. In analytics, you will find, so you can always question Amazon why you have kept the same name and confusing everybody. There is SageMaker. In fact, the difference is like this. I don't know why it is under analytics, because it should be a general tool which is connecting different world. The convenience is that it is available under analytics. So SageMaker is becoming a set of new tools to connect different world of analytics, AI, ML, and GenAI. The traditional tool which is available is called SageMaker AI, which is available under the tool called machine learning. So you can see here under machine learning. So first thing you understood from my demonstration is you must be a master of machine learning tab, and you must be knowing what is there in the analytics tab. Okay, so if you can combine these two, there's no option. So please don't ask me, is there an optional? It's not an optional stuff. Every time you go to a customers, you may not be you don't have to be an SME in all these areas. Nobody expects that you should know all these in analytics. Just to know a one-liner about what are this, but just focus only on the SageMaker, right? But it's good to know as much as possible, because in a practical project, okay, these two worlds are not like the way somebody is taking a class. I'm not a person who's coming and instructing you and giving you classes, right? So I'm implementing solutions. We see that these worlds were very different, we are uniting. So now if I ask you a simple question, is there any tool in AWS, Amazon Web Service? Amazon Web Service has got around 233 services, approximately, I'm telling you. So if you add simple max, you add this plus this, there are 233 plus services, right? Approximately. So in that, for an AI ML professional, the very strategic tool from AWS where there are a lot of investment happening is SageMaker only, Amazon SageMaker. Okay, so they're trying to integrate the multiple service tools. If I'm repeated this number of time, it means it's extremely important. I'm already doing some work with some customers about migrating the existing repository, which is disparate, okay, into one unified way to really look at it. Okay, so this is very important. So a traditional tool to do AI and ML, okay, is SageMaker AI. So let's get the three important service of AWS for the class, right? There is a SageMaker, a Amazon SageMaker, which is used if you have a project which is spanning across multiple services. Maybe you have a combination of, let's take an example. You build a connected restaurant. project with AWS. Okay. And let's see, must be some. Okay, let me go to the architecture center and pick it up. And I'll just put you a link for you on that. You can just analyze it when you get. Just to prove you the statement that what am I talking? Is it something very high level or something like that? So here I go and search for connected, and I might get some connected aircraft mobility. I just want restaurant or something like that. So let me see whether it's available. I think they have removed it. Will insist that I found this yesterday. So hopefully they're not very fast to remove this. Let's try once more. Okay, I think there's some update happening on the diagram. No worries. Let's pick up another one, which is connected aircraft. So if you really look at the connected aircraft here, you will find in this particular diagram, this is analytics, there is AI ML, there is IoT, everything working together. Okay, they don't work the way we think. A product management can go and create some services in a different order. A learning person can come and teach you subject like this is SageMaker, this is SageMaker AI, this is lab. But when you get into a project, you will be have to build a diagram, right? Reference, somebody designs a solution and they put together and connect the dots between the 230 plus services, right? So that is an art. It is not to be taught, right? So that is an example which I'm just showing you. I just wanted to pick an easy example for all of you. There was a very easy example in the architecture center. I think they've removed all the easy examples, which is not really a good sign. Okay, there were a lot of examples here. Let me give you one particular example for all of you to go through. Okay, just to prove the point. You don't have to understand that, okay, here is connected restaurant. This is what I wanted to show. Okay, you can see that. You can see here, this is the connected restaurants. You will see IoT. You will see these are analytical stack. Here is the AI ML. Okay, and then there is the front end, back end, notifications, etc. So you must, all of you, go through this link, not to do anything else, just to prove when you are seeing something on the product. Now, this is a very unique demo, which is very important for you to listen. So there are three different views of the things. This is when you're learning something, you will sit and learn all these product and services. But if you know you're coming to learn to build this, okay, to build this diagram. So let's take one diagram only, not to confuse you. So suppose you take that you want to really understand the connected restaurant, you will see that different coloring scheme. Coloring scheme denotes that one, each and everything, okay? Each and every area, one area is in the green, another area, which is analytics, is in the violet. You will see that SageMaker is in different color. Compute like Lambda is in one color. This is how we design diagrams. On a daily basis, what we do is we go to the customer, uh, has to really go and do is to you gather the requirements and then you start building these diagrams and build a solution for your end customers. SageMaker and SageMaker AI is for this project. If you have been doing in the June 2024, I'm just giving you an example. You will have to collect data for this part of the analytics. You have to collect data for the SageMaker. You have to collect data for the IoT separately. Now, the SageMaker AI is only doing one thing is the new SageMaker, which is there, is able to integrate these three different worlds with some new tools which is introduced. So as a beginner, you should understand, keep this diagram with you. not that you understood everything in this diagram, to look at that, what Steve Jobs tells, connecting the dots. The worlds, according to a learner or somebody who is just going to an academic learning, is that you just learn what is cloud, what is EC2, what is S3, what is AML, structured lab. But when I'm in a project, my world is exactly opposite. Somebody tell me build a connected restaurant. Somebody tells me build a connected airport. Somebody tell me enable an e-commerce with a new system which is doing this. So that time what you have to do is to build all these services together. So if you have been trained from the day one, even when a student is able to whiteboard this and show me, can you give me an example of how these services work together? Unless you have been trained in such kind of thinking, you will not be able to draw. So the idea is we have several weeks coming up, so don't worry in case you're not understood fully. You just have to go slow. Okay, this diagram picture I gave you only for one reason, that all of you are with the same page, that how does a typical services works. So let's repeat this. Okay, in analytics tab is one of the way. We all know what is analytics. I don't have to explain, right? So we have been there, MIS, dashboarding, historical analysis, what if analysis, they're all coming under analytics. The MIS, all what you have seen, the traditional business intelligence solutions. So that is a tab. Okay, most of the projects which I have done is where you go into an analytic customer and build an AI ML Gen AI on the top of it, right? There could be customers who don't have a analytics, then you might start with AI ML with a little bit of backend analytics, which is also required. So these are big brothers, twin brothers, which are not separatable too much with customers. But that is how you should learn. And you don't have to know all the 21 services listed in the analytics. You just know that something which is relevant for today for us is the SageMaker, right? Which is very, very important. And some of the other services which is used for transforming the data into the world of AI, into this also we will cover, right? So analytics is important. The second important thing is your machine learning tab. And we will be covering this as part of the course, so you don't have to really worry what are this. But what are the two important services? One is the SageMaker AI. SageMaker AI is a tool for data scientist, for an ML implementer. Okay, and then there is Bedrock, which is a tool which is used by people who want to build something on generative AI from the. Okay, so if you want to really build anything with GenAI on AWS, it is Bedrock. If you want to do something as a machine learning only with some bit of more traditional foundation model extension, you will use SageMaker AI. SageMaker is under analytics, which is to bring the world together. If you have understood it, you are far ahead from the people who are knows things in the AWS world, because it's very, very new and people may not be covering this as much as how they cover the other topics. So let me ask you some simple questions so that we gather all the inputs. So a customer is looking at building a large e-commerce application. Okay, and now for this e-commerce application, the front-end developers is already doing a job. They want to build analytics from the existing data. They want to build some predictive analytics on the machine learning. They also wanted to build some uh, next high generation generative AI text. They want to optimize on the data store, data strategy. So which tool will all of you recommend to the customer to get started? SageMaker, right? So SageMaker will take you to the all the world of Bedrock. It will take you to the world of SageMaker AI. It will take you to the all the world. So the beauty of this particular tool, let me just close this, is it is going to go around to cover. There is a studio which is available, which is like a visual studio or something like that. And do not expect like we're going to cover all these things, but if I don't cover this, you will not know. Basically, this is a very important piece which has come. You can see Bedrock is here. You will see Lakehouse, which is the data lakes, which is part of it, data AI governance, etc. And you will see all the services related to this is being put together. This is the first, you can see it's called Next Gen. It is very easy to get confused because there is Amazon SageMaker, there is Amazon SageMaker AI. The older version of SageMaker is called Amazon SageMaker AI. The next generation of SageMaker, which is going to have one integrated view of the solution across data analytics and AI, is called Amazon SageMaker. Okay. To build generative AI, which AWS service is used? Bedrock. So what should you do as a person who's beginning? You must play around with these tools. Labs are important, but first be an evangelist. It means really don't bother to restrict yourself like somebody's like create an image, create that. It's okay. That's perfect. That's just to get you a structure for learning. But how do I learn the best? Is to really go and understand what is Unified Studio, what is. If you're going deep dive, yes, we can guide you, but it's a vast topic by itself. But I'm just giving you these three as a beginner, you must know. Okay, if you are entering into the world of AI ML, you want to implement AI and ML, go to SageMaker AI. If you want to implement generative AI or deep learning, go into Bedrock or go into the SageMaker itself because it has got tools for doing ML as well as deep learning. If you want to bring a strategy to bring together the AI and data analytics together into an integrated experience, go for Amazon SageMaker. Class over. Okay, that was on the lighter side. These three tools covers almost 50% of our work in the world of AI ML in AWS. So if it's Azure, I love to talk a different language, GCP, different language. Everybody has got their own strategy. Within AWS, you can be very confident. If I can cover these three tools really well, I have done most of my work. Okay. So let me recap before we go back to the topic of the day is AWS has got 235 plus 233 plus services. They're grouped this way. For a person who's doing AI ML implementation with AWS, it is good to really know analytics. And if you want to really focus your energy, the important tool is SageMaker, Amazon SageMaker, which is the Center for Data Analytics and AI. And if you ask me, is there one more very important tool? It is Glue because it's a ETL tool. If you have to prepare the data for a project, you'll have to move all your dirty data or messy data into one repository. You can use the Glue. AWS Glue is called as a service tool. So just keep in mind your focus should be here. And if you imagine your module 4 or 5, we will be covering on the data part. We will be touching some of these services, which is also essential for your certifications. So when you're doing certification with AWS, predominantly we have an AIP certification, ML engineer certification, ML specialization. There is also a data engineers certification, right? So these four certifications pretty much will cover a little bit from the analytical space. So it's good to be aware of these 18 to 20 service one liner to get started as a beginner. But as you get deeper, you will know that we will be covering some of these tools in deep. Some of them will be at a very hollow level because we don't have time because this is an ocean of knowledge to be given. No rocket science. If somebody tells you this is important, it means you just obey them that if for an AIML person, analytics awareness is important. That's where we should stop. What are important top 2, 3 tools? It is SageMaker, and then there is something like your Glue, etc. Okay, and then you should predominantly focus for the class on the Bedrock. Okay, so these are the tools which is available for you for implementing a generative AI, ML solutions. So whatever you learn through the portal, through the deck, you will have to end up coming here to this ML tab, and that is where your implementation will happen. Now, when you're trying to implement, you can't tell your customers, I only know Bedrock. Is it possible? No. So that is the reason that I'm just reverse engineering and telling most of the projects connect back to analytics, but not all of them. It's not a rule. Predominantly, it is a logic. All chatbots will become GenAI enabled ones. All the analytical projects will be enabled with AI, ML, and GenAI. But this is not a rule because we are working with so many customers. I know that most of them have an MIS existing system. We are only going to do something on the top of it. So you must be aware. So read those diagrams. Okay, I'll be giving you a comprehensive demo on the Bedrock. We will wait for it to come and we look at. So what are the other important tools which is there from here? So if you imagine, why did I ask you a question? Do you know AWS cloud? Because some of the tools which are there here, like storage, right? Now, for every project in AWS, in the world of SageMaker, S3, even in analytics, S3 is the backend storage. It's the object store which is used. In some of the solutions, that's the only way you can store all your data. Even if you have to implement RAG in generative AI, you'll have to bring all the data. You might store it in the S3 bucket. So the knowledge in your S3 bucket cannot be very bleak. So if you have to pick one from this entire list, it's only S3 bucket. But you must really know S3 bucket in detail. So you don't take this class to learn it, but I'm just giving you some guidance because we're just starting off. We're doing all hands-on. So you understand S3 bucket helps you to really learn that as a repository for your AI/ML repository, because data collection has to be stored somewhere. It's not some data, it's huge data. How are you going to store terabytes of data, petabytes of data, right? And how do you transform the data that comes through the tools like Glue? Okay, and then you bring to S3 bucket, you can do analytics, you can do AI ML, you can do generative AI RAG. The concept is the same. So just pick up the storage, no S3 bucket well. So I have done workshops in S3 for 2 days. Then you know how deep is the subject. You can learn it at the bottom layer, telling, okay, S3 is like you can upload a file, download a file. There are so many features. Okay. Can we say Glue service is used to migrate the data to S3? We go, you're right. So suppose a customer tells I have data on my structured file, this file, that file. You can use Glue to transform the data into the S3 bucket. So we're connecting a project now, right? Storage is very, very important. What else is important? So can anybody discount me how important is security, right? So S3 bucket, there is no coverage, but every class will have S3 bucket. If I have to show you any demo in Bedrock, it will go back to S3 bucket. And if when I told you I did a 2-day workshop, what do you mean? If I click S3, there are more than 200 plus features in S3 bucket, which maybe hardly 1% of the people will know. The more you are able to understand what are those features, you will be able to manage it. You will ask questions like, how do I safeguard my data? How do I encrypt my data? Okay. So these questions don't come just because you are asked it, because you really encounter that there can be some kind of a problem while you're trying to use this. I don't know why this is very slow, but pretty much we will click once more the S3 bucket and don't allow it to come. So once you see S3 bucket here, you can see there are so many features. Okay. And then there is something like a storage lens. So if you know the trick of the game, by today itself, by tomorrow itself, you know which are the services most important for a AI practitioner, right? So from the storage, it is your S3 bucket. So learn as much. We will learn as much as possible in the class through a practical implementation. Then there is a security. I want to really call out an extremely important area for all of you to really, really focus. So if you don't know about this come from the AWS cloud services. We will have to use these services to protect your AI project or a ML project or a GenAI project. Intrinsically, some features of the security will be part of the AI, ML, and GenAI stack. For example, the features like something which we build like guardrails or part of a AI, ML, GenAI. But these are general security principles. So if I have to really rate somebody that are you really good in AI ML, you must know storage, because data storage important for a AI/ML domain. Okay. Security, identity, compliance, overall, whatever is possible. You don't have to be a security specialist or something like that, or a storage specialist. Just have to know, like, no, do I know IAM, how to create user roles properly? Okay. Do I know a little bit of the KMS part of it, right? If you don't know, go back to the cloud course and build it. And this, I'm not talking from a generic sense. Every project which we do, we have to really know this security. Even if you want to create a domain under a Bedrock where you're customizing something, it'll go back and ask you what is the role, what is the user. So all your foundation gaps will get exposed. Any errors which we get in a coding or any project is not based on because you are not strong on AI ML, because you might not know what is the role, what is a user, what is a policy. So it's a good investment from your side to take one cloud, maybe AWS or GCP or Azure, since you're in AWS class, to know the basics, right? So security, I will not tell you have to learn everything. Pick up the top three, four, like IAM, KMS, okay, and some bit of what is important for you for the project. Not knowing everything is not important, but if you're doing the basic certification, it covers very broadly. You can ignore satellite, robotics, quantum technology, networking. Imagine 9 out of 10 questions I get out: how secure is generative AI? Okay. How do you protect the data which is coming from customers? So all those lies under VPC. So you must know how to create VPC, or you can hire a network specialist who will do it for you. But you must know the basics of the network and content delivery, right? And not for knowing that this is not relevant to this class. It is 100% relevant for this class, because nothing in the interface of Bedrock will travel you through the S3 bucket, will ask you the permissions. It will tell you to demark the data. So that information is not part of your any of AI/ML tools. It's part of your base foundation. So brush up your VPCs a little bit is very important. All the rest are not very important. But if I want to pick second one, it'll be CloudFront. If you're building any web applications, you can think about CloudFront. So that is extremely important for you to know. And from there, you can just ignore all this. The management governance, we have a lot of tools here which you can look at: CloudWatch, CloudTrail, monitoring this. A lot of you asked last time about observability. How do I monitor this stuff? Everything comes under management governance. To me, the most interesting part of this is your well architected tool. So one of the, do we have a lab for VPC? I think I'm sure the labs will be available in the basic class, right? So you can just learn it from the basic class. And when you come into the world of generative AI, suppose you got customer data for you to configure for a foundation model, for a RAG, for an agentic AI, you know exactly which particular zone to put, etc. So you'll go back and then do, yeah. And CloudFront, you're right. Okay, it doesn't have a lab. Don't worry. There are a lot of content available. You can just have a look at it online. Okay, I'll leave you some link so you can just go through that. That's also possible. Just practice VPC. It's a very theoretical, commonsensical networking concept. The base level is quite good enough. Okay. So why am I talking about well architected tool? So every time you want to design a project in the AI ML space, Gen AI space, there must be some principles given. I will be very confused if somebody tells build this, build that without any benchmarking, without any guidelines, without any best practice. All the information about how to build a project, because all of you job oriented means you're going to really build something for your customers quickly. So what does a person sitting the other side want to know? Can you get into my project and do things, right? For that, the essential item is, one of the essential item is the well architected tool. So what is well architected tool? It is basically will provide you all the guidelines for how to build uh, a project for your operation effectiveness, for performance, for security. Okay, so let's quickly have a look at, and I will just leave you the. So if I go to the AWS well architected tool, it will give you 6 layers, right? So, and what I'm telling you is a very practitioner view, right? So don't really look at it this like these are some dots you will connect initially at the basic level. And after that, you can take over this from a very structured way, how to do things, etc. Okay. So if you really see, just give me a second. Think I missed the chat. Okay. So there are 6 pillars. It means every project you do, you can follow the guidelines. AI for how do I really build for operation excellence, security, reliability, performance, cost, and sustainability. It means this is one way for you to really plan for a project. So if you really look at these 6 pillars, we'll cover how to design an AI ML project. Now, this is a skill which is required for your. So when I did my solution architect professional certification, these skills are very useful, irrespective of what is the delivery you're doing. You might be doing implementing an AI project, you might be implementing ML project, IoT project, a simple migration project. It doesn't matter. AWS recommends that you know the AWS well architected tools. But the catch here is if I'm doing an AI ML project, the syntax, the semantics, the parlance of how an ML project is done is very different. How a generative AI project is done is very different. How a IoT project is done is very different. So every customer, every partner, even professionals like all of you, question telling like this looks very generic in nature. Can you give me principles of these 6 pillars for the workload? What I'm trying to do for the customers. So that is where you will see that there is something called well architected lenses. Now, this is a gold information for all of you, right? So once you know this, you can play around with this. The information here, it's public information, you can download. Okay, constantly we use this for every project. It is recommended by AWS for every project, right? So any practitioner, wherever time zone you are, anybody who's doing an AWS project knows about well architected 6 pillars and a lenses. Now, what is lenses? You can see generative AI lenses. You will see a lenses for machine learning, which is separate. You can see here machine learning separate. So if you're doing only machine learning, apart from knowing the 6 general principles of the architecture, you can get into deeper into machine learning. I'll give you an example. It is the same well architected framework, 6 pillars. There's no difference. It is the same one. Okay, I'll give you an example. So I was traveling to a client place where we had to do a project on IoT and AI ML. So we actually wanted to connect to a lot of the devices on the ground and then do some kind of analytics and some little bit of the machine learning. This was the project, right? I'm not going to. So when we entered into the customer, initially we met the CX level people. They're quite friendly. They talk about this is the project, etc., etc. They gave me a brief, and we told like this is how we're going to approach this solution. They're very happy. Then we had to meet the team which is doing IoT. Like those kind of people have been there 10, 12 years on the device world. Another team, which is a specialist in the ML and Gen AI, ML and analytics, you could call. Gen AI is very new. So when I had to meet the IoT people, you have to understand when you're meeting them, you can't ask question which is very generic in nature, right? Because they are specialists. So you might have to use languages under security. The design principles will change, like manage device service lifecycle holistically, least privilege permissions, secure device credential rest. Now I can't tell you how important is this particular topic, because what are you trying to do here? You're taking first, you will do the 6 pillars anyway. Generic principle, you will do all the 6 principle, all the 6 ones anyway. After that, you will get into the lenses, combine them. Suppose a project is called IoT plus AI ML plus generative AI. The first rule of thumb is you'll have to go through all the six basic pillars so that your basic security, basic operation excellence, basic reliability is met. After that, you are reading what are the kind of solution component the project has got. Based on that, you can apply these lenses, which is additional to the six pillars. So the blueprints are available for you in that link. Okay, what is IoT? So if I go into any of the factory, right? So if the factory machines or something like that has to generate data, you might put something like devices like Raspberry Pi or Arduino, some special devices fitting into the systems. So it will be able to really generate data from these machines and sensors. It's called sensors. And you can bring that data into an analytical frame and do some kind of analytics, and you can do predictive analytics. So IoT is Internet of Things. So the IoT projects are very common. IoT plus AI ML, IoT plus generative AI, sometimes IoT plus analytics plus AI ML are very common, because if you are connecting to a physical world, how does a physical world, for example, you go to an airport, there is a lounge, there is a security scanning center. Now, all these systems or physical systems, so you have to put some data onto it, which are coming out like thermostat, some of the common examples. All these are examples. You can also look at what is IoT, you'll get a lot of informations. We don't want to enter into the world of IoT, but what I wanted you to know, like when you're talking jobbish thinking, employability thinking, solution thinking is very important, not the product thinking. Anybody can be good in product by just practicing. Very rarely you will get somebody who knows what I'm trying to talk. Like, no, typically you know the product. You're the best in Bedrock maybe end of the course. But you also know how Bedrock can connect into a different world. Okay, how do I architect a system on GenAI? Maybe you're not an SA or architect, but still to know the design principles on how I, as an implementer or as a consultant, even not as a coder, I know these are the tools which can help me on the design front. Just keep this as a high reference for you to really look at. What are there? Can I say IoT is analyzing data coming from physical device, generating absolutely right. That is what IoT is. Any place, like for example, a TV is there. So what do you call a smart refrigerator? What do you call a smart washing machine? What do you call a smart AC? It means that it's got some devices which is able to communicate. That is IoT world for you. Okay, like thermostats. So we will talk about those pre-built services. And there was a question, friend, is it different from well architect framework, same as six? No, it's not the same six pillars. So you will use the six pillars first, and then you will use lenses additionally. So that's why I give you an example. When I entered into the project team on IoT, they are very experienced people. Every day they are building something on the devices, enabling system. For them, you can't ask how secure you are. So I will look very small before them if I ask a silly small question. So I should know to ask them what kind of device security for. So if I was not a person who knows IoT, from where will I learn? I can go into the lenses. So I can go and download these lenses, or you can hire a specialist from the IoT domain, take along with you, because even I will not know all these areas, right? So that you can carry somebody based on the project who is good in that. Even if you want to do a migration project in AWS, you will use this lens. If you want to do a project which is specifically for government, you can use this lens. For data analytics, you can use this lens. These are all last 25 years. Amazon architects, practicing partner architects, everybody has built solutions on AWS. They put all the best practices, designing principles, everything into this simple link which I've given you. So if you read them, you are indirectly not only becoming a solution architect within AWS, you're also making yourself very strong on the AI ML architectural thinking. Whether you want to become an architect is a choice number two. Okay, there is no certification directly from AWS on AI architect, right? So you just learn SA's principles, which is through the well architected framework, design principles. and then learn the AI ML, but you'll have to put them together. That's the knot. That's why I gave you this. So let's move on. From there, you come down, click storage, learn a little bit of S3 bucket. From there, you move security, learn about this. Okay. And then ML, whether you know or don't know, read all these service tools. We will be using some of them in the class, but you as a professional, we want to give the best current knowledge. Like for example, Bedrock Agent Core came 2 months back into the console. Just 1.5 month back, we have Bedrock Agent Core, which has come, which is to complement the agentic AI kind of principles into the Bedrock. So you will not find that in any of the material, right? So neither there'll be a course on it, because even AWS doesn't have a course on Bedrock Agent Core. But while you're live on the instance, you can always go through whatever is available. If you don't understand anything, it's okay. You just know that Bedrock is for building GenAI, and I have SageMaker AI for a traditional ML and AI developer. And then there are a lot more tools which are available. We'll learn them one by one. So don't worry. Okay. Now let's switch over to the deck view. I'm going to not come back to this deck after a few sessions, but ideally I want you leave you this deck to make you visualize every time you're building anything with the Amazon. You will find the bottom layer is all about infrastructures. Okay. And then there are various services given to you to really use to build your solutions. And then there are some services which are available, which is called no code AI, which is basically to quickly build the solutions. You don't have to really go through the tedious process. You'll be able to quickly build it. So we will be having a separate half a day to cover the no code AI, which is basically the different services like your poly, transcribe, translate, comprehend. So what is the difference? If you get a project where you have to do things from the scratch, you might use SageMaker AI kind of a tool or a R Studio. You will have to build the entire model yourself and then build that for you. Sometimes in a data scientist or a ML implementer has built a solution for you, which is available for you to use. You can call its APIs and integrate it. So services means that you will be interacting at a more of a API levels. Okay, but at this level, you will be actually doing it more deep dive. From a framework and infra, suppose you want to create your own model, you want to really train the model, you have all these frameworks, etc., to really build your frameworks and infrastructures. So keep this diagram. Do not overdo to understand this everything on day one, but imagine bottom layer, ML service layer, AI service layer. Okay, let's get back to fundamentals of a Gen AI. Okay, in generative AI, the same infrastructures is available at the bottom side. Maybe if you are a data scientist to an app builder to a business or a different personas works on a Gen AI. So that at the bottom layer, we have infra, then we have Bedrock, which is the core stuff which is used. And then we have different applications which can leverage, like the Q business, Q developer, Q in QuickSight, Q in Connect, etc. These are different solutions and tools which we will use. So if you are doing a generative AI project where you have to build your own foundation model for your customers, you might start at the bottom layer. Sometimes you know what is the solution to be built. You want to quickly have a rapid application development for leveraging some FMs and build your UX. That's when you will use Bedrock. Okay. So if you want to consume as a particular solution which is already given to you from AWS, just you will have to use it. That is at the application. So business level, you will just be using it. Okay. At the app builder level, you will be leveraging the Bedrock. You can either leverage Bedrock or you can leverage the SageMaker AI also, which also gives you a way. The difference between them, we will see it as we go forward. But ultimately, the projects can be divided into three types. At the infra layer, also sometimes you will do projects which is very deep. So imagine I'll take examples for you so that you can visualize the fundamentals of the GenAI. Suppose a customer tells, I am a banking, I have petabytes of data, I want to build my own foundation models, right? So, what Amazon gives you is the bottom layer and infrastructure. So, you can use these Trinium, Infantia. We have hyperpods, which is not listed here. By using that, you will be able to build from the core. Okay. As I told you an example, if I have to build my dream home, there are three ways to do that. You can buy a land and then build your home. So when you're buying a land, you have complete flexibility what to do. So the infrastructures for FM training and inference is like EC2 and GPUs power. You will have to do everything from the scratch. Imagine you don't want to build your home on the land, you might buy an apartment or a flat. Here, what you do is you will not even know where is my land. My infra is unknown. I don't even know where am I living. It is called a undivided share, something like you will get, but you're totally lost what exactly you're owning, right? So that's basically a middle layer where you are not able to really understand the infra and platform. Bedrock is something like that, where it's a serverless. Okay, it is basically allows you to just build applications at ease for generative AI. At the top layer, imagine I give you something which is already built with Bedrock and then you're just using it. So Q Business is used to connect to Slack, SAP quickly and build something. Q Developer is used by every developer who want to build vibe coding and all this stuff. Q in QuickSight is already a MIS solution, but if you use Amazon Q, you can use the GenAI capability within the QuickSight. You have a contact center which is available. We have integrated Amazon Q into it, so you can use contact center based quick generative AI. So Health Scribe, healthcare clinical notes, there are a lot of applications which are available, right? So to build that applications, the Party Rock, which is an IDE build out of the Bedrock for you to build the generative AI applications. These are all examples. Okay, so this is a very important slide, and all of you can practice this particular tool called Party Rock. Now, just to give you an example, if I go to Party Rock, this is called an AWS playground. So let me just go to not a sponsored one, but to the original one. So you can go there and build your generative AI application in next 5 minutes. Okay. But that is not what is very important. What is Party Rock is very important. If you come down, it tells it is a Party Rock is an Amazon Bedrock playground. So it allows you to build your own applications. Just sign up on this. You can build your simple restaurant application. It will, at the back end, it will call some of the foundation models, but just experience it as an user that it is an IDE, okay, at the layer of the business user, which you can generate some applications maybe in 5 minutes, 15 minutes. Last class, I showed you how I built a simple to-do application through vibe coding in 5 minutes, right? Now, this Party Rock helps you to build generative AI applications using Bedrock in 5 minutes. So you can try out this. Okay. What is the difference between Bedrock and Party Rock? Bedrock is a solid service given by AWS to build applications, rapid applications using leveraging the several foundation models. Okay. Party Rock is an application built through the Bedrock because it's powered by Bedrock. It's given to you. So you can just use it. But at the back end, when you do Party Rock, you will not see anything. You are as an end user trying to create applications. At the back end, it will call Bedrock, it will call foundation models to actually do it for you. Right? So it is the UX component of it. So, like I'll give you one more example for you to visualize. If you go to AWS Health Scribe, so this is basically generating clinical notes with your basic application. So again, if you install the Health Scribe and try it out yourself, you will find that again this uses at the back end. At the back end, it will use the Bedrock, but at the front end, it will just give a customer the flexibility to, let me close this. Okay, it will give you to build this. So what are we talking? Let's get back to the slide. We're talking the layer which is the top, right? We have Amazon Q business, Q developer, Q in QSat, Q in thing. Then there is Party Rock, okay, which is also an example. You also have examples like your Health Scribe. Does it mean those foundations were built using the SageMaker? So let's think like this way. The first thing which happened in the world was AI. Okay. In AI, it was more a generic kind of a thing to mimic human intelligence. It was just open only for researchers. In ML is where the models were started getting created, where the data was available, algorithm was available. You started training the have huge amount of data and then apply these algorithms and make your model behave like a human being, like it's able to predict results based on the data and algorithms. So you build several models there. Okay, and then we had the world of deep learning where you are mimicking the human brain and the neural networks, etc. Then the world of NLP came, natural language processing, under which we have generative AI. Imagine Gen AI is under deep learning, which is under these models, or still will be, if you want to go deep into Gen AI, creating your own foundation model, training, you'll still use your ML context. So you still will be able to understand it only from that dimensions. So those foundation model itself internally are built through the machine learning SageMaker only. So that is the reason the history of all the foundation models. So I did one project where we are trying to create an FM for a client. So here we had to hire an ML engineer. It means like he's building one, he has got a lot of data. So you need to really know deep dive into it. The algorithms are slightly different, but you should be knowledgeable on deep dive into the ML and deep learning. So yeah, you're right, Bukola, to ask the foundation model build using the SageMaker or something. More you should think like you need to have the ML knowledge. So while you are trying to build your infrastructures, you will be given some other tools apart from SageMaker also. You will be able to use it to build your models at ease. Okay, so there are applications, there are tools like Bedrock, there is an infrastructures. So as I told you, you can buy a land, you can buy an apartment, you can also go into furnished apartments. Furnished apartments means everything is set like TV, fridge, everything in your room. That's the application layer we are talking about. Today, what we need in the world is the application layer. We need people to build intuitive application. There are several foundation model available from Bedrock. But what is more important for us to know is how do I consume this and build something for my end customer? That's the application layer. Either you can build that as a service, a one-time activity, or you can build it as a product, which you can take it to multiple customers. So Health Scribe is an example of a industry notes taking on a healthcare, which can be given to multiple customers in the healthcare domain. So, but any one of you can build something like that and then make it a product. That's possible today. You can leverage any of the foundation model which is suitable for you. At the bottom layer, it's simple. Please don't create any foundation model. People feel that if something is not there, I will go and create a foundation model. That's not the way it is, right? So for creating foundation model is a serious business. It requires a lot of effort, lot of capacity, lot of expense, lot of time, okay, before you do it. But if you have a real data, you're experienced on something, you feel that something. For example, I am currently working with some projects where we are building a domain data for a kind of an autistic domain. Like typically that's a domain where we don't have uh, information which is having like a foundation model intelligence. So we have foundation model for text and code and all this stuff, but in that domain we are collecting data from several places and building an FM. So here it's worth to put that effort because nothing is available in that. If you ask it to ChatGPT, it'll give you some general answer. But if I have to train it for the domain, then you go for the infrastructures. We'll be learning making FM. It more than learning, that is a deep subject, but I can give you guidance in terms of how you do that. But ultimately, it will involve doing using your bill. Like if you use that from the AWS, AWS will be happy. you will not be happy because the amount of infrastructures and the pain it will take from a backend perspective, it will be very high. So look at whether we can look at some simulation kind of an approach to learn how to create your FM than you creating, because even in a big enterprise customers, they don't invest so much, but you must know the process, how to create your own foundation model. That is absolutely essential. That's very simple to know also. What is difficult is to actually do it because it involves a lot of time consuming resource, because you're using a free service, $200 credit. But once you touch those Trieniums, Inventia, SageMaker, Hyperpod, Ultra clusters, okay, so then it is going to be a difficult job for us. Okay, let's move on. These are foundation models. You take large amount of unlabeled data. We already seen this. Pre-train it, create an FM, adapt it to a broad range of tasks. Imagine unlabeled data is because you're convenient for us, because we want to build quickly. We may not have structured data always. You pre-train it, make an FM. Then, because it's like all of you, so if I ask you, how are you able to answer different questions in different domain? You're able to answer about politics, then you lift to sports, then you're able to answer that. If I tell you visualize the image, you will be able to whiteboard it. And then if I tell you play a song or you want to sing, you sing. You're able to do everything if I ask you a question. Okay. But where is the knowledge stored? Because you yourself is a foundation model at a single instance, because you can't scale. Imagine I put you 10,000 people of these 10,000 people together, then all these data are available in the foundation model. From where will you take the data? From a public domain. It could be from customer data, which is public. You can't take customer enterprise data and train a foundation model, right? So if I ask a foundation model, what is the leave policy of a company X? It should tell, I don't know. If it tells yes, there is a problem, right? Because that is secure. You can build that like a rag. You can feed an HR policy and build something local to that company. But on a public domain, you can't share what is the notice period, what is the salary, and all this. You cannot be shared. It will only be shared with the context of the employee. So this is the simple. We already seen this diagram. And why do you select unlabeled data? Because you can scale for pre-training, lot easier to obtain, requires a human task force to create laborious annotation, etc. We also looked at this in the last. You can just recap it. Let's stick to the plan a little bit so that you know this. And in case you missed it, just refer to what is this unlabeled data all about. One thing which we missed covering last is about the self-supervised learning. This is very important. We are not covering in this class about different type of machine learning. ML has got three types. It's called supervised learning, okay, which we have something called unsupervised learning. We have got reinforcement learning, a different type of learning. So if you give the data and label it, it is supervised learning. If you don't label it, allow the system to learn by itself, you are not supervising, so it's unsupervised. In a typical situation like a reward system and where you're trying to create a driverless car types, we have a reinforcement learning. But generative AI uses a concept called self-supervised learning. This is where the foundation model is trained on vast amount of unlabeled data, okay, to show rich representation of language. So unlike supervised learning that relies on labeled data sets, self-supervised learning allows models to learn from data where the input itself provides the supervision. So every time somebody was asking, does it keep learning whereas I keep asking questions, right? So that is how the models are very powerful. In self-supervised learning, the model will learn from the data where the input itself provides the supervision. The model is also trained to predict parts of the input from other parts of the input. So you might wonder, like when it is learning itself, is it not called as an unsupervised learning? Okay, because it looks like an unsupervised learning. How is it different? So both approaches, which is unsupervised learning and self-supervised learning, learn from data without explicit label. How the learning process is structured in self-supervised is very different from an unsupervised learning of a machine learning. So in a self-supervised learning, what happens is system generates its own signal based on the input data, to remove a word. For example, here in this particular diagram, you can see we have an unlabeled training data. Quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. So it will remove the quick jumped over the dash dog. If you just put this, the model will predict the word called excited. Okay, and compare to the pseudo labels and tell update the model and try again. So it in self-supervised learning, you will see that the process of prediction and comparison, the model will learn to make better predictions by itself. There is a pseudo label which provides a way for the self-supervised learning to train on unlabeled data by creating something like a scenario where it will be harness the vast amount of unlabeled data available. So always, mostly, not mostly, it will use self-supervised learning. So when you are transitioning into the AI ML from a different world, after you learn through the AI concepts, the next step for you is to learn different type of ML algorithms. You will be learning supervised, unsupervised, reinforcement, and among them you will find there are 100 plus different algorithms available on ML space. That is basically, if you have data, how do I take the algorithm and train? Deep learning is RNNs, those kind of networks where the neural. When it comes to generative AI, we will use self-supervised learning because OpenAI, the ChatGPT, which created and through the attention is all you need, they all prefer this model because it gives you a quick way for a model to learn. This is not a dumb chat where you're trying to ask something, it just answers it, it doesn't know. This is a very continuous process where it will learn. For example, you can try it out yourself. If you set a context to the chat GPT and you keep asking, it can make you relevant to that context and keep answering you or bringing more context to you, right? So that is because all this, is there a difference between unsupervised and self-supervised? Self-supervised will look like an unsupervised because you're not giving labels, but from the context of how it works within the GenAI model is very different because like the way the generative AI works is through transformer predictions, normalization. It's very different. But you can the self-supervised learning is not your supervised learning because you don't give those labels. It looks like unsupervised learning only from one context that you are not providing labels. But the way it internally works, there is no comparison to the unsupervised learning. It's quite easy. Ultimately, when you enter the cloud world, what happens is these algorithms are automated within the SageMaker, within the generative AI. You don't have to really learn. The way I learned is like some 10, 15 years back, we had Anaconda, which was a very famous open source tools, where we used those Anaconda and all these tools to learn all these algorithms. We had to code it, we have to write it. But today, everything is automated. So, but still, the basics we will cover definitely as we go forward. I'm sure there is one lessons on it, so don't worry about that. Okay. So just keep this in mind. You should understand this a little bit. We'll skip that for a while. So, but one topic which is very important is how do I plan a GenAI project? Okay. And this varies between different OEMs. From an AWS perspective, or their guidelines, how I plan. So always in a generative AI projects, these are some simple steps you will follow. Always academically, everything looks simple. Practically, it looks exactly 360-degree opposite. So I've summarized it. I have not had any project which looked as simple as this slide. Okay, so please understand, defining the scope is a Herculean task in today's projects because already the world is confused, right? You have vibe coding, agentic AI, every tool trying to automate. There are AI tools which are 300 plus. I told you recently I was doing one media project on agentic AI where there are, apart from the tools, there are some 25 tools available in the media domain for automating content development to create streaming videos, etc., etc. So the way I would recommend, strongly recommend for you as a consultant is, what do you mean by defining the scope? Now, here you should think very smartly. So, what do you mean by define the scope? Just focus on the customer business requirement, right? Because you're getting into a project. That project has got a kind of a history to it. That is where I was telling chat to a foundation model enabled chat. Existing analytics, trying to bootstrap it with something like an ML or a generative AI. That could be customers who don't have any of these footprints you're building from this. So defining the scope has got a lot of steps. We will see that. But then after you define the scope, you will select a model. This is pretty tricky because I think 2 years or 2.5 years back, when Bedrock was just released, I think I was an early adopter and tester on that, right? That time we had only 4 models. And today we have 154 plus models available on Bedrock, right? Imagine it is too much of options for us. And there is a lot of union, intersections, confusion for anybody. So once you define the scope, how do you select a model? You know more and more models. How do I know more and more models? Go to the Bedrock console, okay, and then practice and see what are the different model listed. I'll show it to you today. Log into the Bedrock, do 2 simple steps for the day. You will understand what I'm trying to tell. Okay, so defining the scope, selecting a model. Selecting a model is based on the use case, based on the project. No magic wand available, right? There is a way to optimize the model. We'll talk about that later. Adapt the model, use the model. So, what is adapting the model means? What do you mean by adapting the model? Is basically imagine the model is not giving, it's giving, it's hallucinating. Suppose you're building a model for a retail customer, and that retail customers is want to know about merchandise and all these information, etc. You want to train the model with data which is enterprise. You want to do prompt engineering. You want to fine tune the model to the level what is suitable for that. That is adapting the model. Or it can be just that you're looking at the use case, looking at the model, looking at the delta of it, and looking at how to fit that. And then finally, you use the model. When you will use the model, you might build a front end. Imagine you might have an intranet page where you want to just place this as a bot, or you might want to build a complete UI based prompt interface. So it depends on what is the way you want to consume the model. Consumption can be in multiple ways. You can use an API gateway to expose the service by which by an endpoint you can consume it through your front end. There can be multiple ways. But fundamentally, what you mean is how do I take this model and use it from it? In defining the scope, do your customer want this? Can your organization do this? There's no big rocket science here for me to explain, but you play around with what the customer requires. Practically, if you really see, if I go to the customer case study, solution library, and all the architecture reference center has gone through this process. Why did I give this? When I am discussing define the scope, it will become very theoretical unless you see that that project must have had some scope. The customer, like especially when you see a customer case study, the customer could have listed a business problem, or a salesperson must have gone to the customer and tell you face these issues, we have done it elsewhere, do you want to really look at this problem? So defining the scope is very important. Is generative AI the way to do it? Is more important to understand. Sometimes people force fit because something is very new, they want to force fit into it. Don't do that. Defining the scope is to really understand, to build the entire life cycle of this. We'll come back to this in a while in detail. Then you can look at a short time impacts, long term impacts, because this is where it failed a lot. GenAI projects are not really the way all of you are thinking, right? Now, customer thought like it's really cool and all this stuff. But when they implemented, the cost bombarded very much because over a period of time, these tokens, pricings, etc., became too high. So, what is very important is to look at short-term impacts, long-term impacts. How do you scale it? How do you complies it? So that is where the tooling comes. So when you read these slides, suddenly you will have to understand the context behind this is when you implement, we are talking about AWS service security. We are talking about compliance also from the security tab. So how, what do you mean by quick deployment resource? We are talking about management governance tab. So all implementation comes through the Bedrock services. But what is very important for you is to know it's theoretical. So there is a separate place where we have put together all the prescriptive guidance. So there is a separate tools page which is given by AWS in case you want to really look at standard practices. Now imagine this is another tool which is available from AWS. So like solution libraries, building solutions, customer case studies for building your customer stories. Now prescriptive guidance is useful when you want to have a DevOps practice lines, best practices, how do I build a kind of a modeling. So for those things you will find the prescriptive guidance is more useful, right? So you can just go to the prescriptive. I don't know why it's taking so much time. Okay, I just wanted to paste this link here, just bookmark it. Okay, it will be very useful for you as you are getting into this. Is for anything AI, ML, migration, GenAI. You'll find all kind of guides available here for you for implementing the best practices for everything. So I rigorously have used this. I have also contributed into this in a while back. So you can read some of the contents here, which will be very useful. Okay. So this is a long term and short term impacts. An example is you might tell additional point you might encounter planning, although generative AI can provide a variety of similar illustrated using chatbot as an example. Okay, so chatbot can be a great examples. We can talk about this a while. Scope of this a chatbot, like for example, we were building something for a retail company. There was an existing chatbot available which was giving all the information for people who are coming into the portal or coming into the retail store. But while we are defining the scope, the there were a lot of data which was not used by the chatbots, and it was very difficult to integrate. So the question what you asked about multiple FM, some of the images were uploaded, some of the voice was told by somebody asking questions. We were able to bring those variety of solutions to really build those chatbots. So in a scoping exercise is extremely important, not only to build a more diverse solutions, it's also to really look at suitability of different other solution sets for this. So this is a very important point for you to think. From there, you go to select a model. That's the second step. We will be talking about this in very detail because the entire generative AI is all about foundation models, customizing the foundation model, pre-training the foundation models, okay, domain training, using RAG, using prompt engineering. That's what it is all about, right? But what you can do in general when you tell for a beginner, selecting a model means you can either use what is available from the shelf, that is called pre-trained model, or you can fine tune a pre-existing model. These are two ways to do that, right? So basically, what is fine tuning? We will cover it. It's a process of taking a pre-trained model like maybe GPT, Llama, or even Amazon Nova, and you can adapt it to a specific task or a data sets, right? So it teaches, it's a specialized domain. Maybe even you can teach it a legal text or a customer email, medical reports. So that is fine tuning. Fine tuning is absolutely important, right? Because pre-trained model is like somebody whom you're hiring as a lateral hire from a company into your company. He knows the stuff, but you still have to bring him into your company and train him on specific parameters of how a project is done, what is your culture of the company, how the team works, what are your customers, how you specifically handle a project is very different. The guy knows SAP, that's pre-trained model, the basic level. Then you'll have to make him adapted to this. That's a different story, right? And how do you adapt it? We just took that storyline in the last week about you can ask him questions, that is prompt engineering. You can give all the documents for him to learn, that is RAG by giving additional. He doesn't come, you can put him into a training into 1 month to really train that person. That is fine tuning or something like that. Nothing works. We know what to do because we have to rehire somebody or create a new foundation model, which is basically to build somebody inside who can take over that role. Same thing happens in the structure of models. Adapting the model, we have prompt engineering or we have something called pre-training. So you can adapt it with a lot of capabilities, right? So that is the adapting, which is very important. We will talk about this. There are separate labs for this. You will learn it, you will enjoy it. But there is no end to this learning because every day there are new service released by every OEM. So it's always that you have to have a continuous learning in place. So once you adapt, so this is the simple step: defining the scope, selecting the model, adapting the model, using the model, and that's how you really do the work. Now, is this very foolproof to tell that this is how I do the project? The answer is no. This is just give you a bird's eye view. If I had one slide which I pulled it, I would want you to think this slide also along with what has been given, which is which is a very important slide, not for the Gen AI, but generally it fits everywhere. Okay, now we'll talk about this only in the next week because once we enter the ML. But this is a great way to really visualize how a ML. Why? Because even the Gen AI foundation models has got a process internally. How do you build a foundation model? It'll almost map to this slide. Okay, but if there is already a foundation model, then you will plan it this way, right? So it's got a typical overlap. Don't want to confuse all of you, so we'll keep that away for a while, not forever. Okay. Now coming back to Bedrock. If you are with generative AI in AWS, the number one preference given is using Amazon Bedrock to build the solutions. Okay, so what is Bedrock? So let's go line by line to understand because this is the building block solutions. And if you have any doubts, keep asking me. We will annotate this and understand every word which is written here. Okay. Let me go back, close this. Okay. And let me use this part. Fully managed service. First point, which all of you should get: fully managed service. So if you are in the world of AWS, we should understand there is a concept called serverless. Okay. So serverless is when you don't know what is the infra, what is the platform. You've just been given a choice of using an UX to build applications. Okay. You will do something, quickly things will happen. So fully managed service means like you don't have a pain to really build a lot of things from your side from an infra and the platform. So you've been given a quick set of foundation models, a quick set of features by which you can build your next generation application on GenAI quickly and rapidly. Okay. So that is the first word you should understand. This is very, very important for you to understand. So fully managed means serverless foundation model as a service. And second, it talks about leading foundation models. This is the second point. It means it's like a Uber. Okay. It's like your somebody like, so think about Uber. How many taxis or cabs they own? The answer is zero. Okay. So now the question is like, then what does Uber do? It will orchestrate and tell you that I have so many taxis available, you can use it. So Bedrock is serverless. Second, it will provide you a choice of foundation, but by itself, it is not a foundation model. It's a foundation model as a service. So you can call the foundation model, you can implement certain things through the console, and then you can go to the API level and call them. Then you can write something in Python, Java, call them. You don't have to be a coder. If you want, you can be a coder. If you don't want, you can use a declarative way of building the solutions. So it provides you all the leading foundation models. Third, it provides you various FM to choose from. This is almost similar, so I will put this into two. You can customize FM with your own data. That's a third point. It means if it hallucinates it. For example, if you are building a project for an internal banking on a Bedrock. So the banking team is a retail team and to want to ask a lot of questions, you selected, for example, a foundation model which is like Amazon's some foundation model called Titan. Okay, just take an example. So that particular model can answer questions what you're asking. Typically, you ask question, it'll answer, but it has no idea about that retail customer, right? So unless foundation model didn't understand, let me explain it this way for one more time. Okay. So foundation model, suppose all of you have a WhatsApp, you are chatting. Or the side on the WhatsApp itself, you find something called Llama 3. Now that is the foundation model given by your Meta, for it becomes almost like a brain of the backend, which is a foundation model. It's like all of you. It's like Goyal. Goyal is a foundation model. When I ask any questions, he's able to answer quickly and retrieve. Imagine there are 10,000 Goyals together in one place. How intelligent it will be. So that is Llama 3, which is a foundation model. If you go and search for ChatGPT, if you download ChatGPT, it uses the foundation model called GPT. It's another foundation model. Like this, you can go and look at finding so many foundation models which are available in the market, which you will be able to really use based on your project. So there are more than so many companies who are giving you foundation models. Each foundation model is fit. As that's why I give you an example that if you are getting a specialist like a lateral hire who is knowledgeable, you'll have to hire a SAP lateral hire separately, .NET lateral hire separately. You might hire a Java lateral hire separately. If you ask me why do you need so much, because each one is a specialist. Some foundation model good in text, some foundation model might be good in creating reels, some foundation model may be creating generating code. Each of them are being trained with lakhs and billions of data. So it means you ask a question, it knows the answer. Even though it knows the answer, if you want to customize that particular foundation model to your specific project, that is where you go to customizing the FM with your own data. Did you understand that go a little more better than previous thing? That is how a foundation model is integrated. After that, you can integrate generative AI application into work. This is very important. So in my recent project, we went into a partner place. The partner is using an intranet. We all know what is intranet. You have a wiki where you log in your leave and everything. They wanted to convert that intranet into a prompt based approach. It means like instead of going into the intranet and creating a form and submitting, now I want to go into the intranet and ask where is my payslip? Can you give me the payslip I want to download, etc. A free text model of prompting based on your context and user login, it's able to get you the information. It's connecting to the SAP, it's connecting to the HRMS. Okay, you will never know, but you are just prompting. Okay, or even you can speak. It's very dangerous from if you don't have a security, but it is happening in that way, right? So after you are building a solution, the way you want to give it can be multiple. One is your interface itself can become a prompt based interface. Second, what you can also do is you can have your existing application where you can interface and incorporate a prompt base. Like when you click a submit button, you can tell it will become a prompt. Okay, and then from there you will be able to do it. So you can, or you have an existing applications where you can go and integrate it. Like you want to integrate it to a chat items, or integrate it to a WhatsApp, you want to Slack or a Salesforce. So you can integrate to various ways. Okay, so Bedrock, let me repeat it, it's serverless, it provides you choices, it provides you various FM to choose from. Now the question is, if you go to a restaurant, you can order them separately. But if you go to a buffet, you will be so confused. Suppose you go to a highly paid buffet, you have some 160 items before you. You will confuse what to eat. Because you are paid, you might eat more because you don't want to waste your money. But ultimately, you will get confused because there are so many things for you to basically not consume and you don't require, but you really feel that you have to do it for no reasons, right? So what are these different foundation model? Let's have a quick look at it before we see a demo of it and end the class, right? So various foundation models are available. Let's list some of them. First one, Amazon. because you're in an Amazon class. Amazon gives you two series of foundation models. One is called Nova series. Another is called Titan model. So when I first started using Bedrock, maybe 3 years, 2.5 years, when it's just launched, we had only Titan models. Okay. And then later they released another family, which is called Nova series. Now, don't ask me a very simple text questions, which is very difficult for me to answer. When and where you will use. At this point, Nova may not be even touched upon in your course because it just got 4 or 5 months back. It will be mentioned, but mostly I think they will use Titan. But what you need to know is the prominent model which Amazon is pushing is the Nova series. It means based on your use case. If it's only text, use micro. You want text plus image plus video, light. You have some balanced strategy where you will be using, there's a pro which is optimizing your cost. Now all these are like your subscriptions, like no, everything is going to hit your wallet. So based on purpose is one thing, other is optimize for speed, then there is a cost factor, etc., etc. It takes a lot of time for you to understand which model to use. Don't day one attempt it. Day one attempt to know, suppose you are creating a reel, like reel, I don't have to explain to anybody, right? Nova reel can help you to create a video in 1 minute. All of you can try it. Just watch the billing, $200 credit, whatever you're doing. Amazon loves to count how much you're using it, and if you cross it, they'll give you a notification. If you don't listen to it, you're going to get a bill. I think sometimes you can get some part of the bill through whatever it is, but you have to be careful while you're trying to consume it. So stick to the labs. That is something which I think they are working out with you from K21. But apart from that, if you're trying something, just be disciplinary that you know that what you're doing. Okay, so you can actually consume any one of these models. These are Amazon owned. There will be overlap, there will be confusion because one by one, some of the features here will be there. Okay, but ultimately the experiential learning is different. Today, closing my eyes, I know when a use case comes, which particular model to select. That only came through 3 4 project experience, doesn't come through just going through text or going through a class. But you as a beginner, as when I started, the best thing I did was to know what are the models available for me. This is only Amazon, and then there are third party providers. Now you can see this is Amazon company giving you one foundation model called Nova series, another foundation model called Titan series. Then you have AI21 Labs is another company which gives you Jamba, Jurassic 2. Anthropic is another company which is very famous. Okay, Anthropic is the company which talks about MCP. They created the Model Context Protocol. They're the one who are creating foundation model which can think. It means the senses of the models able to, if you ask a question, it will wait a minute. Let me think, I will answer. Such kind of models are being created by Anthropic. So it's a very interesting company for you to watch. And a lot of people use their standards. Cohere is another company. Meta, I don't have to explain. Mistral, Stability AI. Now, based on what you have to do, you will have to have a channel. All these are being provided to you through the Bedrock. So when you enter into the Bedrock, you will find Nova series, Titan models, AI21 Labs, foundation model, Anthropic's foundation model, Cohere's foundation model, all of them listed. And then all the OpenAI GPT models are also listed. Okay. So if you want to have a quick summary, Nova is for text, image, video. Titan is for image generation. So you can bring some kind of logic to this. Okay. But ultimately, things are changing every day. Right? So GPT-3, GPT-4, GPT-5, by the time the slide deck got created, you see support for that also available. Okay, I just mentioned certain part of the text which is also available on the next versions. But ultimately, what you should understand from this particular interaction is Amazon Bedrock is foundation model as a service. It is a serverless. It is like an Uber orchestrator. It has got how many models? It's got 174 models as on December. I can add another 15 to 16 to it around 180, 190 models. Okay, and it also allows you to fine tune this model, safeguard this model, evaluate this model. You can write your own command line to list and look at what the feature is, and it has got different types. Okay, model provider is OpenAI. The model consumer, you can do it via, see the people who create these models, for example, these companies, always will control it. So what is Bedrock doing? It is trying to tell that I am providing you choice as a AWS person. As a AWS builder, you've been given a choice. So let's go into the console and tell you what you should try. And it is also part of your documentation. So I will just stick to some of the logic for it's easy. So first, how do I go there? Go to machine learning. Okay. And then you will click Bedrock. Some models can be available, certain not in others. Yes, you're right. The reason why that is there is basically certain models, even from a restriction is there on some models from a company, some models are still very new, they will not be available in all regions. Some of the models are being even tested in few regions, etc. There are a lot of rules for it while they release. Let's come back to the topic. So once you have gone to the console and played around with it on the analytics tab, machine learning tab, and a little bit of all those things, put all your attention into your module 2, which is all about Bedrock. But what is the first step you should do is what is your lab 1 is all about. So lab 1 is all about how do I get model access. Okay, so let's understand what do you mean by model access. So just because you have got a 6 months free trial $200 credit, it doesn't mean that you will be able to use the model. Okay, so you need one extra step before the model is available for you to just test it or use it. That is called model access. Okay, so now model access, it's pretty much very clearly written here is to use, it will give you a list of models which is available. You will be able to use this model access to ask, request that I need these models available for as a project person. Within maybe 1 minute or 30 seconds, you will find the access will be available to you. It is not, it will not take you a lot of time. Like some of you might be thinking like, if I request today that goes through a workflow, nothing like that. The kind of response you will get, most of them are backend automated. So how it will look like, I just want to show because I have access to all the models. I just wanted to show you. Imagine it is showing me all the models, right? So you can go and request the model what you want to really use in your project. Or as a beginner, I have no idea what is these models, how it works. Let me go and ask for every model, whatever is available, I will test it. So either way, it is okay. But anyway, your step 1 is to always go and enable access to the model, which is there inside the Bedrock. You have to go to model access. So why are you having model access? Because if I click the catalog, I will be so confused that the amount of choice I've been given by Bedrock on which model I can use for my project. Since there are so many of them which will come in here, now I should know which of them is useful as a learner, as a beginner. You don't have to really waste your time like I'm going to use this, I'm going to use that. Specifically, you can just enable most of the models and then click submit button. I'll show you how you can do it for one model and then you'll be able to pick it up. So it doesn't take so much time, but so what happens is when you click the model catalog, it should list all the models available from Amazon, which is your Titan, Nova. All the third-party models also you can use, like DeepSeek you can use. Will it cost to use model access? If you are just testing the model by asking simple prompting, no big things. See, the whenever you have got an access to AWS, in previous it was different. Currently, if you got a access, they would have given you a $200 credit. So when you go to Cost Explorer, if you're just prompting it and asking something, hardly any cost will come. If you start using more advanced features like RAG and all this, why is it taking so much time? Let me just, not all the menus, but this menu is taking a lot of time. It doesn't take so much time. Okay, so once the model catalog comes, it will just list all the models available, which is very interesting for you to know. And if you're just enabling these models and just testing the model access, for example, here I can go and tell, let's pick up one of the model which is not available for me. I can select any of these models and tell that I need access to this particular model. Okay. And then I will be able to go and submit a request. For example, let's do one. Just give me a second. I think it's rotating. I don't know why this is very slow. Let me go back once more, clicking the machine learning, going to Bedrock. Okay. Let's click model catalog and see if it's very fast. Sometimes you have no logic to anything which is working. It's taking time. We'll have to be patient. Okay. So generally it's very fast. Like when you click this, it happens over seconds that I'll be able to. So if you come here, it loads the resources. I can click one of whichever model I want to use. You select all the models and submit the request. Within a minute, you will get whichever model they are able to give you. Certain models they will hide from you, certain models they'll give you. You will be good to in terms of using, enabling. This is called enabling the foundation model at the Bedrock. So this is your lab number 1. Step-by-step process has been put as a video as well as a content. The only thing you need to do is to go into the Bedrock, do this and get a model access. Understand the really importance of this is not for you to ask. Tomorrow it might not actually go into that deep, like the way end user agreement, license, not required for everything. Some of the things it will ask you, but you can just, yes, you have to give that end user access license and you can submit. There's no worries on that. You can go ahead. So here I'm just taking an example. So 12 apps I want to have available to request. Let's take one of the model from Amazon itself, which is not available. So for example, Nova. Okay, so let's look at request model. You can see here, modify model access. You can come here. Imagine I wanted this model to be available for me to use. So what I will do is after this, selecting this particular model, I will have to go and click next and then tell submit. So this is your lab 1. Basically what you are trying to learn through this, yes, it's just a legal contract, so you don't have to worry about it. What you're doing in this step is to use Bedrock serverless model. You need to have this particular concept, and which is to enable the model through the model access tabs. So you can select whatever you want to be available. You will see that everything is available from here. Then only you will be able to consume the model. Let's see once more if we have the model catalog. Okay, now you see that there is a, how many we should select? You select all of them. Okay, and you can just consume them. If you don't want to get overboard, just follow the video from where you might be using only typical model like Titan. So select only the Titan models. But I would experiment certain models from different people and then try out. So see, there is a rule which we are able to give you telling that just enable this model and try out this. But within the limits of your $200 and within the limits of what you can consume, you can try out to really select multiple models. I'll give you a selecting and all, there's no cost. Even for prompting, you will not find much cost because you're just experimenting the playground. But ultimately, the cost will come when you start using RAG, using a vector database, when they start connecting to the database instance. Let me just log in once more. Maybe that is the reason. I think from the morning I've been doing a lot of work here on this. And let me just use an authenticator code here and complete this sequence. With that, we'll stop. So we are back here in the model catalog. One of the things you should observe, there are two things I want you to do if you get time by tomorrow. Otherwise, don't worry, we can accumulate everything. If you come to the model collection, before you go and enable it, just check out like when I click model catalog, first thing I get as a filter, okay, is the model collection. You can see here, this is the model collection, right? And then you get filter it by provider. Then you get filter by modality. Then it tells filter it by marketplace deployment and serverless model access status. So ignore this for a while. You should understand the other four tabs. Okay. So model collection means it's like it gives you plethora of options for you. Let's see that. Let's rub it off so that's very clean. Close this. When I tell models collection, it's going to give you that there are 56 serverless models, 173 from the marketplace. Now you might ask, what is marketplace? Suppose any one of you go and create a foundation model. A partner creates a foundation model. A new company creates a foundation model. There is a domain foundation model. You can list it in the marketplace. So if you go into AWS marketplace and tell Bedrock, you will find there is a separate place called AWS Bedrock Marketplace, which is used for you to go and list what you are creating apart from what is available default from the AWS. So you can use and select serverless if you want. If you want, you can select the marketplace which are available from various companies. Now, there is an art here. Now, I have mastered over a period of time some 180 different models available on the Bedrock, maybe some 100 plus in the Azure, okay, little bit on the GCP. Just by sheer practicing to know what are these companies trying to create. That's a great way to research a little bit about generative AI and foundation model.
That's all for today. You just learned the foundation that powers billion-dollar AI companies. Deep learning, neural networks, real-world applications. It's all connected now. Before you go, don't miss our free 90-minute masterclass where experts reveal the exact 3-step framework helping our students land high-paying AI jobs. Register through the link in the description and pinned comments. Also, if you found this video helpful, share it with someone who is also grinding to break into AI or level up their skills. Got questions or doubts? Drop them in the comments below. We read every single one and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. And before you go, make sure that you watch this video next.